If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know of the concept of the scientific miracles of the Quran. Supposedly, the Quran predicted all sorts of aspects of the modern scientific understanding of the universe, although when you actually bother to look into them, you realize they're complete and total junk. Well, today we also have a video about supposed miraculous predictions in the Quran, but it's not about concepts in science this time. Instead, it's about the Quran predicting modern technology. It's called 7 Future Technologies in the Quran That Shock Scientists, which I think that after seeing this you'll find quite hard to believe.
In Surah Al-An'am, we see the following verse. وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Meaning, not even a leaf falls without his knowledge. And there's no grain in the dark layers of the earth, or anything fresh or dry that is not recorded in a clear book. So, according to this ayah, everything is in the Quran.
And right off the bat, you fall flat on your face. That verse is not referring to the Quran. This is about a record of the fates of everything, which the Quran is not. The record being referred to here is one which contains the Quran itself, as you can see in 85:21 through 22. This is a glorious Quran recorded in a preserved tablet, and that preserved tablet is the record being referred to in the verse you showed, 659. And this isn't just me saying this. This is the overwhelming consensus of Islamic scholars, because that's really the only interpretation that makes sense. The Quran does not record the fate of everything that ever exists. It's not a divine record of every occurrence in all reality. But that's what your verse says this record is. What a spectacular fail to start off the video with. I don't understand how you haven't been absolutely roasted for that by the Muslims in your comments. Although I'll be honest, a lot of them are roasting you about a lot of the other stuff that you say. The comments are actually pretty funny. They're not nearly as positive as I would normally expect for a video like this.
Everything is in the Quran, but not in full detail or by name. Instead, through signs, summaries, and fundamental principles.
Right, so like with the scientific miracles of the Quran, you really have to read between the lines, to the point of reading in new lines that aren't there.
In Surah An-Naml, verses 38 to 40, a truly fascinating event is described. According to these verses, Sulaiman a.s. asks for the throne of Queen of Sheba to be brought to him from a very distant land. And someone who had knowledge from the scripture says he can bring it in the blink of an eye. And immediately, the throne appears right before Sulaiman a.s.
Right, so this guy performed a magical or miraculous act of teleportation. You know, like technology.
So the throne, which was in Yemen, somehow either becomes physically present or is seen as an image in Damascus, which is thousands of kilometers away.
Well, physically present is the right one. Solomon didn't say, show me an image of the throne. He said, bring it here. And then the other guy said, I'll bring it to you in the blink of an eye, and then it was placed before Solomon. And then they disguised the throne to make it less clear that it was the actual throne. And then they asked the Queen of Sheba, hey, is this what your throne's like? And she's like, I guess. It was teleported, without technology. More like with the power of Allah. By the way, you said Solomon's court was in Damascus. Where are you getting that? The Quran doesn't say that. If anything, it would have been in Jerusalem. Regardless, neither is actually stated, so why are you saying Damascus?
Additionally, they could see the people around the throne and hear their voices too.
No, what? That's not in the story. This story only shows up in the Quran, in Surah 27, and it has no mention of this teleportation of the throne, also involving seeing and hearing the people who were around the throne. All it says is the guy instantly brought the throne. So you're straight up making things up and pretending they're in the Quran, which in Islam is frowned upon, to say the least. Why do you feel comfortable doing that?
The Quran gives remarkable signs here.
Maybe, but you don't seem all that interested in what the Quran actually says.
Despite being revealed 1400 years ago, it describes how objects or their images can be quickly transported or transmitted over long distances. And it does so through an actual historical event.
Okay, call me a skeptic, but I'm not exactly convinced that this teleportation of a throne is an actual historical event. In the verse right before it, he was talking to a genie. How are you expecting me to take this as a thing that actually happened? But okay, there's a story about magical powers. Wow, wouldn't it be cool if I had the power to get something I want really fast? Yeah, it would. Stuff happening too slowly is a problem people have had forever. Of course they're gonna have stories where that's not the case. We still do. We don't have teleportation of physical objects. We still can't teleport a throne from Yemen to wherever. And yet, how many stories are there with teleporters in them? The appeal of this is very obvious, and it's very obvious why something like this would be told as an example of someone's incredible power. But this has nothing to do with technology, modern or future or otherwise. This is a story of a god doing a miracle, no different from any other one. And it's not some prophecy to be fulfilled technologically in the future. What an asinine way to try to support the religion.
And we see that today we can actually transmit images and sound through the internet and television in just a few seconds.
Yeah, I love, by the way, how you're trying to change the story retroactively to be about transmitting sounds and images rather than transmitting a chair. If I pretend this is about miraculously seeing a throne at a distance, that'll make it seem more like modern technology than if I talk about instantly getting a throne from a distance. Like, to make this pointless comparison, you can't even tell the story accurately. Muhammad's version just wasn't good enough for you. It doesn't lend itself well enough to your terrible argument.
Isn't this event in the Quran very similar to live broadcasts, images we get from projectors, cameras, or even modern holograms that we have nowadays?
No, not remotely. No pun intended. Look, even if this wasn't actually about bringing the throne physically, and it was just about seeing and hearing things far away, obviously people desire those kind of abilities. Man, I sure wish I knew what was happening over there. It'd be nice if I could see it. That's why these technologies were made in the first place. They have an obvious utility, which is to fulfill a desire that we already have. So I'm not seeing where there's an argument here for anything.
But how could something like this be mentioned in the Quran when it was completely unimaginable 1400 years ago?
Unimaginable. 1400 years ago, nobody could have even imagined the idea of overcoming the problems with distance that they faced every single day of their lives. Please. Look, get back to me when you find plans for the internet in the Quran. Then you might have a point. Not just God can do anything, he can get a thing from far away real fast like.
Once again, we see a clear proof that the Quran cannot be the word of a human being.
I would say that the standards for proving Quranic miracles are slipping, but it's not that different from the usual ones, really. They're all pretty much this bad.
In the Quran, we see that Sulaiman alayhi salam knew the language of animals and could communicate with them.
You know, like the animal translator device that lets us discuss politics and philosophy with our dogs. You have one of those, right?
In Surah An-Naml verse 18, it is mentioned that he understood the language of ants, and in verse 22, the language of birds. So what kind of sign is given here?
A sign that people thought it would be cool to talk to animals? This is far from the only legend where someone can talk to animals. Seems to me we've had a very long-standing wish for the animals to talk back. Be careful what you wish for, though. I bet you a bird is an absolute bore at the dinner table. I want sex! I want sex! Give me sex! Give me sex!
In fact, understanding the language of animals indicates that in the future, people might be able to understand how animals communicate and what they are capable of.
No, it doesn't say anything about the future, nor does it say anything about what people might be able to do. It's about Solomon and the divine gift given to him specifically. Regardless, though, yes, Islam does have the idea that animals communicate, and especially that they praise Allah. When you have any experience with animals at all, it doesn't take a lot of observational power to realize that a lot of them do communicate to some extent or other. They make noises, they express moods. In the case of ants, which you mentioned, they pretty obviously collaborate with each other. This is not some modern scientific knowledge. This is something people always had access to. People way back in the past paid a lot of attention to animals. That's why they're such a common theme in these old stories, and why they're used as metaphors all the time based on their varying attitudes and actions.
After all, we know that Sulaiman alayhi salam knew their language, discovered their abilities, and used them in his work.
I don't know that one bit, but sure, that's the story.
And when you think about it, if we fully understand the capabilities of animals, we could give them tasks in many areas of daily life.
What, like plow horses, carrier pigeons, stuff like that? Or are we talking about like dog accountants?
This is actually something we have already started doing. Pigeons have been used for sending messages and letters.
Oh. Okay, there you go, carrier pigeon. So we can use animals for tasks. What an amazing modern discovery. Just wait until the Arabs discover they can ride on camels. That'll be revolutionary.
Parrots have been trained to talk.
Sure, to a very limited extent, but yeah. Alex the African gray parrot, for example.
We have figured out how to use silkworms to make clothes.
Yeah, thousands of years before Solomon existed. It's a modern miracle. So you're not talking about modern technology in terms of making like an animal translator device to talk to dolphins or something. You're talking about just figuring out what animals do and then doing anything with them. Maybe once we figure out how cows work, we can drink their milk. How could Solomon have known that animals have uses.
Similarly, we have, in a way, learned the language of dogs and used their strong sense of smell to fight narcotic crimes.
Yes, we can do things with animals. We know. Everybody's known this for thousands of years at least. What is this slop? And speaking of slop, what the hell's with your imagery? 3 million subscribers? You can't even afford to hire a fucking artist? You gotta get some AI to crap out your filler pictures for you? Millions of presumably real people actually watch this bottom-of-the-barrel garbage. We've all probably met people who operate at this level in the course of our lives. Let that keep you up at night.
Certain species of mice are also used in mine detection because of their highly sensitive noses. And we use dolphins' advanced sonar abilities in submarine search and rescue missions, as well as in finding sea mines.
So you actually did bring up dolphins, but not in the context of communicating with them. If there was one example that might have been actually relevant, it's that. Maybe in the future we'll be able to talk to the dolphins, just like Solomon talked to the ants and the birds. That kind of thing. But instead, no, the ability you mention is sonar.
So, Sulaiman alayhi salam's miracle of understanding the language of animals and using them for certain tasks shows that we may discover even more of their abilities and find new ways to benefit from them in the future.
What does a miracle of talking to ants and birds have to do with that? Absolutely nothing, and this isn't talking about modern technology. You're just talking about, hey, this shows that we can do stuff with animals. People have always done stuff with animals. People were doing stuff with animals long before Solomon. What is this? What is your argument here? Look at this miracle in the Quran. There's some about talking to ants, but I mean, that implies that animals can be useful for some stuff sometimes. Wow, whoa, wow, go figure. Yeah, but it's not just that. This shows that maybe we can do more different stuff with animals later. You never would have guessed that, would you?
There are thousands of animal species on Earth.
There's thousands. You hear that? It's not even just 1,000. That's already a big number, but no. There's at least 2,000 of species. Can you even imagine?
As we learn to understand their languages and train them, what we can achieve together with them may go far beyond our imagination.
Okay, are we going to learn Solomon's ability to talk to the ants? Use them as spies to find out troop movements? Well, no, you wouldn't want to make a big claim like that. No, that could be overextending. No, just in the future, we might discover more things about animals in general. What are they? I don't know, who cares? But somehow it proves the Quran knows the future.
Another miracle granted to Sulaiman alayhi salam was his ability to control the wind.
Oh, let me guess. That predicted the desk fan.
By doing so, he could travel long distances in a very short time.
Oh, he could travel faster, of course. Getting places quicker was literally unimaginable 1400 years ago.
In Surah Saba, Allah says, "And for Sulaiman we subjected the wind. Its journey in the morning was equal to the journey of 1 month, and its journey in the afternoon was equal to the journey of another month." This verse describes how a journey that would normally take a month could be completed in just a part of the day. Isn't this a clear hint at future technologies like airplanes?
No, this is look how awesome this guy is and how much power he gets from God. This guy's the ancient version of a comic book superhero. This is about Solomon having control over the wind, being able to fly around. Later, this would be taken to be in reference to his flying carpet, although I don't know if that myth is actually old enough for this. It might be, but I have trouble establishing that. As you can see at this stage, when the Quran was written, it's incredibly vague. It's just he has control over the wind so he can move around real fast with the wind. There's no description here of an airplane, how an aerofoil works, and there's of course no suggestion here that human flight is possible by natural scientific means. It's a miracle in a religious story. It's hyping him up by assigning him incredible powers that basically anyone would find impressive and desirable. Flight is not something hard to imagine. People have seen up and wondered what's up there. People have seen birds go up there, seen clouds float by. This reflects nothing more than that.
Think about it. Today, with new technologies, we calculate how to use the wind, combine the right materials, and build airplanes.
Right, none of which is mentioned or even hinted at being possible in the Quran. That's the problem, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. What we do has nothing in common with what's described in that story, other than that they both involve flying. We don't just pray to God and God gives us a flying carpet powered by miracles.
Another miracle was that Ibrahim alayhi salam was thrown into the fire, yet it did not burn him.
What the hell? What is this going to be, some kind of cold fire? Or maybe an induction cooktop? Look, they took the pan off and stuck Abraham on the cooktop and he didn't burn. It's a miracle.
The tyrant ruler Nimrod,
My little Nimrod,
became furious with them and ordered his men to prepare a massive fire. But when Ibrahim alayhi salam was thrown into the flames, something shocking happened. The fire did not harm him at all.
Wow, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you, that something like this would show up in a religious tale. You see my mouth hanging open? That's shock.
Of course, this was a miracle that happened specifically for this great prophet.
Yeah, like the Solomon ones. These are not references to the future. They're references to miracles that are said to have happened for specific people. And not ones done by aliens with advanced technology. No, ones done by God with no technology. This is preposterous. What are you doing? Why did you put this on the internet?
But at the same time, we can also see signs for the future in this miracle.
No, you fucking cannot. Man, the desperation to provide evidence for Islam is palpable here. If other Muslim apologists have any sense at all, this will not become a normal thing, because this is, honestly, now that I'm going through this, I think worse than the usual scientific miracles. Truly, truly bottom tier stuff.
In addition to Ibrahim a.s. not being burnt by the fire, his clothes were not burnt either. And once again, this gives humanity a goal. In the future, fire-resistant materials could be developed to protect people from flames.
Fire-resistant clothes. No, I think it's the burning that provided the goal to have fire-resistant clothes. But back up a second. You said it gives humanity a goal. So what? Now it's not a prediction, it's not a future technology in the Quran. Suddenly there's nothing supernatural about this being in the book. It's just, hey, what if you could go in fire and not get burnt? That'd be cool. And then you think people go, oh, good idea, I never would have thought of that, I'll try that. So it's a story about a bad thing was about to happen and then didn't happen. And if many centuries later, people go, okay, I figured out some natural way to not have the bad thing happen as much, I'm supposed to suddenly be impressed that the idea of not the bad thing was ever mentioned at any point in history. What's next? There's a guy who got stabbed with a sword and didn't die. This story obviously gave humanity the goal to develop plate armor. What an absolute joke. I cannot believe the levels of buffoonery on display here.
And in fact, by the mid-20th century, for the first time, flame-resistant clothing began to be produced, especially for firefighters.
Yeah, and you don't think the firefighters dying in the fires might have been the reason why that was developed? And of course, the opportunity to sell equipment to meet that need? No, it was developed because the CEOs of random companies read this ancient story about a prophet who didn't die in the fire. That's how business works. Kind of like how roof safety equipment wasn't developed because of people falling off of roofs. That was developed because they read the infancy gospel of Thomas, where the boy falls off the roof and then Jesus resurrects him. How else would people figure out they don't want to die when they fall off a roof?
In Surah Al-Baqarah, Musa a.s. strikes a rock with his staff, and suddenly 12 springs gush out.
And this gave humanity a goal of hitting a fire hydrant with a wrench and water coming out of it.
Just imagine, with a single touch of a staff, a dry, lifeless rock in the middle of a barren desert turns into a source of abundant water.
Wow, how in the fuck could a desert people come up with an idea like that? This is clearly inspired.
12 springs start flowing, and the people suffering from thirst finally drink from them. But what other messages were hidden in this miracle?
I don't know, it probably predicted the moon landing or something.
It actually showed that extracting water from underground is possible.
You mean a well? Ancient Arabia had wells. How do you think they got their water? They're all over the place. There's one like 70 feet from the Kaaba, in Mecca. What kind of abject primitives do you take these people for? Haven't even discovered that you can get water out of the ground yet. And by the way, even if they weren't doing it, they would have heard about it from elsewhere. These people were not totally cut off from the world. There's references to the outside world all through the Quran. In any case, though, none of that is shown by a story of a guy whacking a rock with a staff and water coming out. That doesn't refer to ancient wells, let alone anything modern.
In other words, it seemed to point to the drilling technology that we use today.
Absolutely not. Are you trying to give me a stroke?
This method dates back to the 19th century. And since its discovery, drilling machines have allowed us to access underground water, oil, and other natural resources.
Oh, is the Quran predicting oil drilling too? Is that supposed to be implied by mentioning this? Who knows? What is supposed to be implied? Anything? Nothing? Are you just talking aimlessly to fill time?
So seeing water emerge from a rock at the strike of a staff has inspired people to imagine future technology.
I love the reasoning process for all of these basically at this point. Look, the Quran has this miracle in it. That's kind of like some modern thing that we do. It's about, moving. or air or water or something, so it's basically the same. Therefore, the Quran is what inspired us to do those things now. It's not just we do this thing and the Quran also says it. It's we do this thing because the Quran says it, which is an assertion you support with exactly nothing, which I suppose could be a little less bad if it seemed remotely plausible based on your examples, but it doesn't.
In the ayah, there was a sign of drilling machines long before they were invented.
Tap in a rock with a stick, modern oil drilling, basically the same technology. Imagine how shocked the scientists must be hearing this. I'm sure every one of their jaws is firmly on the floor, just not for the reason you want.
In Surah Al Imran, Isa alayhi salam, also known as Jesus, says, "And I cure the born blind and the leper, and bring the dead back to life by the permission of Allah."
And this obviously predicts how we cure diseases and make eye implants and how Dr. Frankenstein resurrects dead bodies.
These are some of the most well-known miracles of Isa alayhi salam. Let's now take a closer look at one of them, healing those born blind.
Sure, why not let's? That seems like a good use of time. And speaking of time, this is a terrible use of your time. Viewer, what are you doing awake? Go to bed. I don't care what time it is, go to bed. It's a better use of your time than this.
Today, with advancements like gene therapy and stem cell treatments, some forms of congenital blindness can actually be treated.
That's wonderful. Well, I guess we have the Quran to thank for that. Never would have thought of things like Jesus curing the blind without the Quran to tell us about it, although I feel like I've read that somewhere else.
Again, until the 20th century, leprosy had no cure, but today it can be treated with certain medications for a period of 6 months to 2 years.
Okay, well, you're wrong about that. Leprosy's been curable for a long time. Permanently, I mean. You eliminate the infection and it's cured. You're not just treating it temporarily for 2 years and then it comes back or something. But yeah, leprosy sucks and I'm pro-curing it. And I'll go a lot further than the examples of Prophet Isa on this and say that goes for any disease. It'd be cool if we could cure them. Not because Jesus did it in the stories, but because diseases suck. That's what brings up the idea to make them stop existing. Which, by the way, you know why it's regarded as an amazing miracle that Jesus cured the blind and cured illnesses? Is because people already didn't like them. People already didn't want them to be a thing. I almost feel stupid even saying that. It's so blindingly obvious, no pun intended, but apparently it needs to be said, which is such an insane situation that I almost feel like I must be hallucinating. Maybe I have brain leprosy.
Bediüzzaman explains that this verse gives the following message. Even the most chronic diseases and severe health problems can have solutions. No matter what the illness is, a cure is possible. Keep searching, and you will find it.
Okay, no, that's precisely not what that says. Again, that's about a supernatural miracle caused by God, not about looking for naturalistic solutions to disease. There's nothing in the miracles of Jesus about keep looking for a solution, you'll eventually find one. You'll figure out how to cure diseases on your own. That is not at all what is being implied by those stories. How are you taking this guy seriously if he says that's what these are about? Could he even be more wrong than this?
The last and most astonishing sign,
I bet it's incredible. Obviously, based on those incredible examples previously, I got high expectations for this one.
is in the miracle of Sulaiman alayhi salam bringing the jinn under his command and making them work for good.
Which, of course, is a prediction of humans recruiting demon slaves to build things. Ah, I know. Robots, AI. You're gonna say those are basically jinn. Is that it?
By Allah's will, Sulaiman alayhi salam made the jinns dive into the seas to bring out precious gems, build magnificent structures, and do all sorts of difficult tasks for him.
Okay, yeah, so like robo-subs, factory robots. Yeah, no, that's definitely where we're going here.
Bediüzzaman says that there are many signs in these miracles and that the jinns could actually be controlled and become servants to humans in their work. But of course, this will not happen through things like fortune-telling, magic, or other practices that go against Islamic principles.
Could it not? Can you not just summon a genie with some sort of magic ritual? I feel like that's gotta be possible according to Islam, right? Even if you don't like it.
He says it could be possible through some hidden secrets within the Quran. Of course, we still don't know how this could be achieved.
Excuse me? We don't know. So your number one spot, your last and most astonishing sign of technology that we know about now that was predicted in or inspired by the Quran is not a technology that we don't use now and we don't know about. But eventually, maybe we can do something with that. I don't know. Some of the other ones were allegedly based on stuff Solomon did in the stories with miracles from God. So why shouldn't we be able to enslave the jinn too? So all the other ones were us actually figuring out how different aspects of nature work and using it. This is summoning demons. But not with magic, don't do that, use technology. Yeah, fireproof jackets and demon slaves, totally the same category of thing, equally plausible. Man, it's weird that we haven't figured out how to do this last one yet. We figured out so many other incredible things, but this one we've made literally no progress on. I wonder why.
But while this remains a mystery today, it may well become a reality in the future.
Yeah, get back to me on that one in the future. Why did you save this one for last? At least the other ones were sort of similar to things we can actually do. That's the point of the video, is to compare things in the Quran to things we do now, with science and tech, not spooky woo. But you're ending on the whimper of, I don't know, maybe this is possible somehow, I don't know. Man, my example was so much better than yours. At least I tried to come up with one, and mine was no more ridiculously dissimilar from the story than any of yours were, and it was incredibly obvious too. It was right there waiting for you. But you couldn't be bothered, you just sort of gave up.
At this point, you might be wondering, why didn't the Quran mention these things explicitly?
No, I'm really not. Okay, enslaving the jinn is actually mentioned explicitly. And wells, that's in there. Surah 12, Surah 22, Surah 28, and people using animals for stuff. Obviously, that's all over the place in there. Okay, a lot of this stuff does actually directly show up in the Quran. You're amazed that we know and do things now that were mundane facts of life back then. Who knows what you think the point of that is? Who knows if you think at all? But the actual things in modern technology and science that you brought up weren't mentioned explicitly because it's the Quran. It's an old holy book written by people who had no idea. Being pushed around real fast by the wind shows up because, wow, that's cool, but airplanes don't, because they didn't know what that was. They couldn't tell you a thing about them because they'd never heard of them, and none of the principles of how they work were known to them. TV and teleportation don't show up in the Quran, nor does the Quran refer to them, because God blinked a chair into a palace from a long way away. Modern fireproof clothing and medicine don't show up either. And nothing about any of these stories hints at them, because it was written in the 7th century. That's the why. There is no more why. Alright, well, he spends like another 2 minutes making excuses for this, for why none of these technologies that are supposedly mentioned or hinted at in the Quran actually show up in the Quran. And I guess it's kind of funny, but I feel like it'll stretch out the end of the video and really bog it down. I feel like it's way more fun if I just leave it like this. Just enjoy the full blast of ridiculousness and leave. So that's what I'm gonna do. Thank you for watching. This was awful. I don't even understand how it can get worse than the scientific miracles of the Quran, but here it is. This is most definitely worse. Just goes to show there's always a new low. I'm starting to believe that the bottom of the barrel is a myth. There is no bottom. It goes all the way through the earth until the bottom of the barrel becomes the top again, which would then make the other top also the bottom. I guess you can ponder about what I mean by that, because I don't know. Alright, if you would, subscribe and like before you go. Huge thanks to all of my supporters. See you next time.